Vattelevision. Well, we're here with Susan Daniels, and Susan was one of the witnesses in the hearing today in Georgia. And I just wanted to ask you, Susan, if you could, for our viewers, just recap what the essence of the evidence that you presented was.
Well, Dean, I'm a private investigator from Ohio. I've been licensed since March of 1995 and have years of experience with this work. A client of mine asked me to do background on Obama about 2.5 years ago. And I started by trying to find a social security number on him, because that's where you always start, a background. And I immediately knew there was a problem, because right away up pops his name with the social security number that was issued in Connecticut. It also said that it was between the years 77 and 79, and I immediately knew it was fraudulent. The reason that I knew it is because I knew I'm very familiar with his background. I knew he was living in Hawaii at the time, and as I was able to pin down, he was only 15 when this number was allegedly assigned to him. Now, I found that out because I was able to get from the Social Security Administration copies of records for the number immediately before his and 4 numbers after his. Those records were available because the people were deceased. So I was able to pin down that the number was issued exactly in March of 1977. Could not have possibly happened. Someone told me at some point that he played basketball on the Punahou Academy basketball team. He was a junior varsity player, by the way. I don't think he ever made varsity. But in February of 1977, they were in the state finals, and in fact may have won. We're led to believe that he was playing basketball in Hawaii in February of that year, and yet lived in Connecticut when it was issued, because at that time the Social Security numbers were issued by the state you lived in when you applied, and it had to do with your address. I subsequently did additional work, did background work on him, and found that number at all the addresses, his law firm's addresses in Chicago, his house, Michelle's former condo, his address in Massachusetts when he went to Harvard, in Washington, D.C. when he was a senator, and every one of them had the Connecticut Social Security number, which, by the way, he didn't start using until the mid-1980s. Now, by that time, he had already been through Occidental and Columbia. His number should have shown up earlier than the mid-80s. What I did is I started looking then at the addresses, and when I found one of the anomalies I found on the initial verification of the Social Security number was the year 1890. Now, I mean, if I didn't know I was right before, I knew I was right then, that it was fraudulent. I have never, in the thousands of Social Security numbers I've looked at over the years, never seen anything like that, because then it had his date of birth underneath it. And in fact, it had his number in the American style and the European style. I started looking at the addresses, and I probably ran 10, 12 pages of addresses for him, and noticed on a number of the pages where it said date of birth, the year 1890 popped up. Most of them were his August birthday, but 1890 showed up probably 6 or 8 times in 10 or 12 pages. Then what I did is I took the phone number that was also at every one of those addresses. It had never changed, which makes me believe that it was a cell phone. And I ran that, and the same thing happened. The year 1890 showed up as his date of birth. And I could only conclude that that the number, that I was right, that the number was fraudulent.
Well, I think you did a great job, and we appreciate all the work you've done in this area of our investigation.
Well, thank you.